Welcome to Passioneer Magazine, the podcast, where you'll hear inspirational stories, encouraging news, and in-depth interviews with authors, influencers, CEOs, and thought leaders. Passioneer Magazine, the podcast. Bold ideas, brave pursuits, boundless inspiration. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me for Passioneer Magazine, the podcast. Today, we are looking at how we can navigate change with resilience. Now, we understand that change is an inevitable part of life and that our ability to navigate it with resilience can make all the difference in the world. Now, when we explore practical strategies for embracing change from a positive perspective, of course, there are so many inspiring stories that we can find in the world. Choose one and use that as your catalyst to move forward. People face adversity every single day, but people also provide actionable steps, effective change, and inspirational stories that we can use as our fuel to keep moving forward from a positive perspective. Now, again, some folks are going, Dr. Angela's always talking about from a positive perspective. Absolutely. Because we have absolutely no problem being saddened, worried, angered, any of those type of emotions. We have no problems doing that, right? That's going to come to us quite naturally. But for so many, staying positive is the challenge. So I like to plant the seed every time I get the chance to remind you to do it from a place of positivity. So one thing that we can do to help navigate change with resilience, and I'll be going over three things. Number one is we need to learn how to adapt to the change and embrace it as an opportunity for growth. I'm going to say that again. When we are adapting to change, if we understand it, if we accept it, if we plant our toes in it as though it were embracing an opportunity for growth, then we are starting on the positive side of the timeline. So there are three things that we can do, but in the podcast, I'm only going to give you one. You can definitely check out the entire post on it to find out about the other things. So one of the things that we can do when we are adapting to change and embracing this opportunity as a growth opportunity is to remember that we should continually be learning and developing our skills. We should never think that we've learned all there is to learn. I hate to break it to you, but every day is an opportunity to learn something new. Now, if you can learn in your field, that's even better. But be open to learning. And one way that we learn is through reading, another through discussion, and another is through networking. Continuous learning and skill development, staying relevant is rapidly changing. I cannot say that enough. It is changing. The way that you've always done things is not the way that you may be doing them tomorrow. Now, it doesn't say throw the baby out with the bathwater, but we are saying that you need to be open to change, to be willing to find out, well, what are some of the new things that are being done? And which one really resonates with your spirit? So staying relevant is a rapidly changing world, in a rapidly changing world, commits us to be ever learning. So think of it like this. Students must adapt their learning, the way in which they learn, to the environment in which they need to apply it. So if your professor was really big on just lecturing, not giving you a lot of visuals, but just on lecturing, you have to then take that information, write it down in your notes a particular way that's going to help you retain that information. Now, once you've graduated and you're out in the real world, you now have to apply that lecture to what's going on in your workspace, in your personal space. How do you do that? And that's what I'm saying here. As we learn new ways of doing old things, make sure that you can adapt them in a way that not only makes sense to you, but also makes sense to your audience, to your clientele. Embracing this flexibility provides the opportunity for you to be ever updating your skill sets and to remain competitive in your field. And I can't say that enough. Now, we don't look at competition as competition, but we do look at competition as a way for us to hone our skills, to keep ourselves sharp, to keep ourselves on the leaderboard, right? Because we are trying to make the podium, right? Everyone is always trying to be the best of who they are and what they can present. And there's nothing wrong with that. But one way to make sure that you are in podium position is to make sure that you are doing those things that are tried and true, but also be open-minded for the things that aren't working. How can you change them and do them in a way that is current, that is perhaps flexible, but most important, it keeps you in that competitive circle. Another thing that we need to look at when it comes to navigating change with resilience is turning challenges into triumphs. Now, again, to get the all of this topic, definitely make sure you pop over and read the entire article. We'll put the link in the description below for you. So there are 2 or 3 things that I mentioned for each one. But one thing when it comes to turning challenges into triumphs, how do we accept that? How do we move past the challenge? One way is by overcoming any personal setbacks. So it starts with you. So be it that you are trying to move forward in your personal life or in your professional life, it still all starts with you. So again, listening to individual stories of people that have turned their personal triumphs into opportunities for growth, they've turned their personal challenges into victories in one field or another. Listen to those stories. There are podcasts out here that are sharing people's stories. So there's no reason for folks not to say, I don't know where to start. Yeah, you do. That's one of the things that we do here on Passioneer Magazine, the podcast. We share people's success stories because we want you to be inspired. We want for you to have those bold actions, to understand that there are boundless possibilities of who you can become. So when it comes to your own personal setbacks, if you shift the paradigm and say, okay, so this is no longer a stumbling block, but this is instead an opportunity for me to demonstrate my resilience. It's an opportunity for me to demonstrate how ready I really am, then you are more probable to succeed. So consider the tale of someone else as, again, that fuel for you to move forward. You've lost the job. Okay, this is a great time to start your own business. You lost your job. This is a great time for you to go back to school and get those credits that you need to actually graduate with your degree, or to push yourself up to your next level of study. Or perhaps you just need to take a certification or a fun class that really helps you expand your mind. Perhaps If you've lost your job, this is an opportunity for you to discover a new passion, and that new passion will be the catalyst for your new entrepreneurial endeavors. So we have to learn to not wallow in any of the setbacks that we may have. The setbacks are instead an opportunity for you to build strength. Now, we understand that when nature has these moments of resistance, that it is for the greater good. We've learned not to help the little baby bird out of its shell, because that shell, cracking out of that shell, is what builds its little body in order to survive outside of the shell. You, human, cracking it and helping it out really didn't help it at all. It wasn't ready. So if you find that you have been put in your own personal shell that you must crack out of, look at it as strength building. Don't look at it as a place of punishment, but instead look at it as going and building your strength, being set apart so that you are allowed to build more muscle, so that you will be ready further down the road. Another way that we navigate change with resilience is through change management tips. Learning what are some life hacks that we can do. Through those tips, we learn to glide through with better transition. So when we understand that we have to do certain things professionally as well, then we move forward in that industry with lessons learned from our personal lives that we can then apply to our professional life. Let's look at our employees, for example, or our teams, for example. Team involvement and participation, or employee involvement and participation, is a decision-making process. When we involve them, it helps us to learn more about them, and it allows them to shine sometimes in areas that they may not have otherwise had an opportunity to speak up and speak out. So involving our teams in decision making fosters a sense of ownership in where they work, in what they do. So many times folks get distracted and feel like, this is my baby. This is my company. This is my product. This is my service. And you guys are lucky to work here. Nah, we've got to stop with the toxic mindsets of thinking that people are privileged to work for us or with us. Though it may be a privilege to work at a particular place in a particular way, in a particular city, and get your particular benefits, our employees, our team members are just as important as this beautiful thing that we are trying to share with the world. For instance, including our team members in the brainstorming, it allows them to process improvements and become active in not only the contribution of the change, but making sure that the change is implemented in the appropriate places at the appropriate time for as long as they need to last. Instead of us thinking that if we simply hand out that memo, send out that email, post it in the break room, that everyone's going to be fired up and excited about it, they're not. They're not. Because I know that I remember when I was a worker bee and I received something new that I was supposed to do. And when we had an opportunity to talk about it, those of us in the pool would say, this person obviously doesn't do our job. Why are they making us do this? Or why are they asking us to do this? This step is unnecessary, or that step doesn't make sense, or we don't even do this anymore. right? Like it's no longer the trend or the thing that is most effective. Like that's outdated. They're telling us to do this, but that's outdated. Or they are asking us to no longer do that when we haven't done that in so many years anyway, because it's simply outdated. So if we give our employees, our team members, a voice, a bigger seat at the table, or even perhaps a seat at the table to begin with, then we are able to have change management glide through. We'll have change management transition more smoothly. There are so many things that we can do when we are trying to navigate change with resilience. Change is inevitable. And 2024 is a year that we are seeing a lot of things change, and they are changing for the better. Please do not become disheartened. Please do not think that just because things are changing, that means that you are no longer important or relevant or needed. That is not true. Make your voice heard, speak up and speak out, do so in a way that is mindful, do so in a way that is respectful, but it doesn't mean that you have to sit at the table on mute, but please be aware of the point that you want to make and make the point. Someone may be depending on you, manager. Someone may be depending on you, director. Someone may be depending on you, team leader, to speak up on their behalf, to be the advocate at the meeting, to be the advocate for them at the table, because they are not able to be there themselves. So I hope that these tips are something that you can use, or you can share them with someone else. Again, I'm only sharing just a few. Be sure to check out the article that has so many other suggestions for you as well. And be sure to let me know which one works for you. If you're listening to this on your favorite podcast platform, we want to know, what are some things that you have done to help navigate change? If you are perhaps reading this article, or you've shared this on social media, and you see this on social media, we want to hear from you as well. What are some things that you do that help navigate change, that help you do so with resilience? We want to know, how are you overcoming some of the obstacles of moving forward and making positive change, not only in your personal life, of course, without giving too much information, but also in your professional life. Those tips may be things that we can share amongst ourselves that are going to help us move forward and have a positive and productive 2024. Thank you for listening to Passioneer Magazine, the podcast.